Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is June 10th, 2019, and we are recording episode 33, in which we are leaving Roshar behind and heading to Taldain as we discuss Volume 1 of the Cosmere graphic novel White Sand. I'm Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my autonomous co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
And for autonomous, we sure need a lot of us in here.
Oh, yeah.
We're each autonomous together.
Yes. We combine our efforts for the podcast.
It actually makes sense because autonomy actually has multiple aspects.
Oh, she does.
And so,
right.
you know, perhaps we are each an avatar of the SICS podcast.
That sounds crazy.
Now I have to go and just think about my existence. For those of you who do listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube rather than joining us live, although you should, we'd like to remind you that it is possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode live at www.twitch.tv/InnkeepersTable. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So please join us, take an active part of the discussion, help craft the podcast. We can mold it around your interaction, partially, because we still have, topics we need to get to. But you can actually take part, and it's awesome. So, what have y'all been up to?
Wrangling children and finishing dresses.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I've been consuming a crap load of E3 information, and
It is that time.
yep, it's that time of year again, and hopefully worth it. Probably not, but
Cool. And I've just been spending way too much money on board games that I haven't had a chance to play yet, which isn't entirely wise, but it's justifiable in my head. So
It happens.
So, like I said, today we are going to be talking about... Where'd it go? I had it.
I have it. I have it.
Right there.
Ah.
We are talking about Volume 1 of White Sand, which is actually a graphic novel. So this is probably one of the least read, I would guess, of Brandon's works, just because
It's a graphic novel.
It's a graphic novel, so it's very different from his other works. Basically what happened is there was a company that approached Brandon and said, hey, we make graphic novels. We'd love to do something for you. Do you have a story ready that we could just take and adapt into a graphic novel? And this is one that Brandon had been sitting on for a long time. This is actually the very first book that Brandon ever wrote. It's also the 8th book that Brandon ever wrote. Because between 1995 and 1999, he decided he wanted to give it another go and see how he could work it. Because, yes, between 1995 and 1999, Brandon wrote 8 books.
That is it. Well, it would be 7, wouldn't it? Or I guess it would be... Because if you're counting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
yeah, you're right. It's not as impressive as it's only 7 in that kind of thing.
That's still insane.
He wrote one in 95, though. So it's just...
Well, you're counting White Sand twice, though, right?
Yes. But
okay.
He wrote
well, if you were counting it twice, then yes, 8.
Yeah.
But.
Well, because apparently it's a vast difference.
Oh, okay.
And so...
I haven't read either one of the novel versions.
I mean, if you weren't aware, The Way of Kings, he actually wrote twice as well. And there are huge differences.
Because I remember in another podcast, I think is it the World Hoppers Guide? Mm-hmm. That one, he talked about how Adolin died in one of them instead, in the previous version. And it was that Dalinar doubted himself with the visions, but they changed it to Adolin doubting him.
Right,
So.
and Kaladin actually, in that version of it, Kaladin actually took the shard blade at the beginning, so it was a very, very different story.
That's a way different story.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Forgot that
So,
detail. Anyway.
yeah, Brandon has a habit of writing stories and then cannibalizing them and putting them into others. For example, Mistborn is the combination of two different stories that he wrote.
And I remember him saying, like, originally Koloss were in Warbreaker, actually.
And, what's it called? My mind just... Oh, Bridge 4 were in Dragonsteel.
Right.
So, basically, that's, in my opinion, one of Brandon's biggest strengths is his willingness and ability to edit. Because, honestly, I've read a few of his early drafts, and they're good, but they're not anything like his finished products.
They're a first draft.
Exactly. And they read like a first draft. But by the final draft, you get these amazing epics and books that are worthy of multiple podcasts being about them. And so... now, the graphic novel adaptation is based on that second 1999 version, and it's actually, he's made it available to people. To get it, what you need to do is you go to Brandon's website and sign up for his newsletter, and when you do that, you'll get a confirmation email, and in that confirmation, there should be a link to get White Sand. He used to distribute it if you wrote him an email and asked for it, he'd send it to you, but he's changed it to the point where now... you get it as part of signing up for the newsletter, which honestly, it's kind of cool.
And it's probably more efficient as compared to having to have someone answer every email and send it to the people.
And if you want a sample of that, there actually is a sample of that prose version in Arcanum Unbounded. It comes after the...
Oh, that's what I was looking at.
Graphic novel version of it. And
that's what I saw.
Yeah, so if you want to get a sort of taste of that, you can check it out, but... then sign up for the newsletter, and you can get the full version. And honestly, I kind of prefer it. It's now remember, this is one of Brandon's earliest works, so it's a little rougher. It's not quite as polished as Oathbringer.
And I thought, was this the one that he changed the artist after this one? Is that what it was?
It changes about 90% of the way through Volume 2.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes.
Because I remember there was a switch, and I liked the later one a little bit more. Because my first experience with graphic novels were more manga, and they're usually very pretty. And so when I see my graphic novels, I like them to be pretty, which is shallow, but I expect my graphic novel people to be pretty unless they're supposed to be an ugly character, in which case they look ugly. But I'm not the biggest fan of this particular artist's work.
In this one, instead of pretty, it's a little bit more gritty.
Yeah, which, I mean, it makes sense with the setting, but it just wasn't my favorite that way.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Like, even in the colorful parts, there's a lot of browns and blacks, and there's a lot of stray lines that make, like, marked faces and stuff like that.
It makes people look weathered.
Yes,
a lot more.
Well,
which, I mean, it makes sense if you live out in the sands and stuff like that. Your face would be more weathered.
Yeah, that's why I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Jordan, shame on you.
No,
I was hoping someone would do that.
I am doing a service to our
before.
constituents. This is what the people want.
For anybody who doesn't know, Bill hates the prequel memes.
I do not. I just hate Jordan being a smug little punk and bringing it up after we just talked about it before the stream.
Look, you may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like.
I hate that smug look on his face is what I hate.
Oh, you love it.
You just have to go to your basement. That's where he is, right there.
And that's where he'll stay.
It's true. I rarely go upstairs.
Oh, gosh.
That's where the pun judgment is.
So let's just do a little outside sort of meta discussion before we even dive into the book. Because I do feel like this is one of the weaker pieces. But I also feel like a lot of that isn't Brandon's fault.
Yeah, it's I haven't personally done it, but I can imagine there's going to be some differences when you have someone else taking your work and putting it to picture, because how you frame things with drawings and how you light it and how you have the character design and everything is going to change versus just straight prose.
Well, and what is Brandon's strength? One of his biggest strengths is his prose. Mm-hmm. And when you cut that out and make it so it's like 10% of everything you're getting is now words, and those have all been condensed, you're going to lose a lot of what Brandon put together.
Yeah.
It's also...
It felt like it... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's... For me, one of the biggest things that Brandon's really good at is explaining his magic system and the nuance of it. And with the main character, Kenton, being so... It's so important that he's not powerful, he's technically proficient. Right. I feel like this is one of those, like, he's very much, I make him think of, he reminds me of Breeze in this regard, where he does something very technical with what he does. And so
like a scalpel.
Yeah, exactly. So not being able to have that view into his head the same way, I feel we really lose, we have to be informed, oh, he's really technically skilled.
Right.
But we can't really be shown, because what he does with the sand doesn't really look that much different than what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of that, if you do read the prose version, is just so much better explained. And so...
At the same time, we may never have gotten to see this book had...
Right.
Had it not been made into a graphic novel, yeah.
Well, and Brandon has said of any of his pieces that he would see as a graphic novel, he chose this one just because it's so visual. I'm not sure I entirely agree with him on that. Honestly, I feel like it might have been a better idea to just not do a brand new book, but adapt something like Warbreaker, which would have been gorgeous.
That would have been... I would have had an issue if they'd done it with this particular art style, though, because they need to be pretty.
A different artist, yeah. I definitely agree with you on that one.
Well, and I believe the second volume has a different artist, doesn't it?
Again,
yeah, 90%
of the way 90% of the way through, the artist changed.
I haven't read the second one yet, but that's going to be jarring.
It is. It's not as jarring as you would think, but you're just sitting there going, "Wait, I think that's still the same character, but they look better or different."
You recognize them, but they look different. Yeah,
they look different all of a sudden. And wasn't there also some issues with how some people were interpreted? Like they were taken and made more primitive than they were supposed to be?
Yes, it was. I think the
oh goodness,
the Khristians.
Yes, I can't ever say it.
Yeah, they look a lot more barbarian in
than he wanted them to be.
This planet has some mismatched soup of cultures going on. The Khristians have this Norse look to them, but they look like they're Irish, just with all the red hair.
And then like the green paint and stuff on them too, right? The green tattoos and things.
And then like the Daysiders, they have all the robes and everything that looks very sort of Middle Eastern look, yet they're all just slightly like sun-tanned, and all their names sound like they come from, somewhere around Nottingham. And
with some interesting ones mixed in there. Not all of them are, but there's.
And then the Darksiders, who I would expect to be pasty white, are actually very dark-skinned, and they have this southern, like, Confederate era look to them, kind of.
Yeah, Chris's design was very odd to me, because she looks like she's wearing bloomers.
You know what I think she look with those glasses, she looks like she could be a vampire from Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
What?
See, and I saw it with the glasses, it made me think more of like Hollywood Celebrity Beach, where they're wearing like the oversized sunglasses. It's just like, nobody can recognize me because I'm wearing sunglasses. I'm sorry, Clark Kent, you ain't.
See, I mean, with the sunglasses, at least I can give them a pass, because their side of the world
makes sense.
Is a lot light. Is Twilight or something like that, how we would. So it makes sense that they're like outside and they're like, oh boy, I need these on because it's bright.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, my son has very, very blue eyes like my husband, and he gets outside and he's like, I need my sunglasses. And my daughter has blue eyes as well, but she doesn't she isn't as bothered by it. So that instantly, like just talking about it now, I'm like, yeah, the sunglasses make sense.
Yeah,
But it definitely has a weird vibe with the outfit.
Nothing's justified. It's just that it's all such a stew of various things that, and heck, maybe I would think the same thing if we saw any of these books put into this graphic form.
Well, she is wearing trousers, but she has a skirt over them.
Like I said, it looks like she's wearing bloomers.
You mean with the frilliness?
All
the ruffles?
Well, all the ruffles and it looks like a Southern Belle's undergarments. Underneath the hoop.
Yeah, the underdress stuff.
It's because it's
stuff
big
like that.
and poofy and ruffly.
I guess I could see that.
Anyway, again, she's a duchess. She can dress however she wants.
I'm surprised they didn't give her another change of clothes, though, because it makes sense that she would have more if she's a duchess, and they even have a scene where her trunk pops open and they're complaining about how many clothes she has, but they never change her outfit.
That's a fair point.
So I'm like, I know it's a little more work to give them different outfits, but it would have made sense that she would change her clothes.
Yep. All right, so let's talk a little bit about where Taldain and White Sand sort of fit into the Cosmere timeline. So this was the first book that Brandon wrote. It's also chronologically the first book that we have so far in the Cosmere. Now, Dragonsteel will come before it, but this is the earliest. Then Elantris, and then I believe Mistborn.
I was going to check our thing. Oh, here we go. That's not publication order. I want the chronological.
Yeah. So
White Sand, Elantris, then Emperor's Soul, then Mistborn.
Right. Yeah, so this is the earliest thing, which kind of makes sense because this is also the homeworld of Khriss. We meet her, and for those who aren't aware, Khriss is actually the author of all of the Ars Arcana in the back of the main books in the Cosmere. So she's she's a scholar who's writing down and studying all these people. She's also the one who wrote all of the essays in Arcanum Unbounded.
Isn't she also the one who's writing down how the magics work in the back of each book?
That's
right.
What I just said.
That's what the Ars Arcana.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Didn't connect that dot in my brain for some reason.
Yeah, so she's the author of all of those. She also popped up in, I believe
Secret
Shadows.
History.
Well, I was talking about Shadows of Self first.
Where was she in Shadows of Self?
What?
That's right. No, she did. She danced.
She dances with Wax.
She danced with Wax.
And she says to him ad nauseam, and he sort of looks at her like, "What?"
What?
Because she assumes that he knows more than he does.
He's in the know, right? Yeah.
And it sort of throws her off, but she's sort of thinking maybe he's Cosmere aware. But yeah, she shows up and has a chat with him in Shadows of Self.
I don't think she has a red dress. Ethart. Oh, I'm going to say that wrong.
No, the woman in the red dress is
Milan, right?
Milan, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Milan's the one with the red dress.
No, she dances with him, and she's very interested in his crashing abilities.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what color her dress is or anything, though. I forgot.
But he said, because he's sort of confused, and she gives the whole spiel about how it's actually, like, any single combination is actually very rare because there's so few twin-born. You're one of only 3 on record.
I just realized, am I confusing? Did she dance with Wax, or was she?
She danced with Wax.
She definitely danced with Wax. You were right.
Because she was talking to him during the dance and stuff.
The reason I wasn't sure is I was thinking that might have been in one of the Stormlight books, because I do remember somebody talking about Makabaki's skin color.
That wasn't that the Herald that's crazy?
That might be it.
That he has darker skin, but he has a shard blade, so that's why they're confused about it, because not many Makibaki have it.
Sorry,
so
I'm crossing the memes.
How could you possibly get confused in these giant series of books that we go so long between reading?
I know,
right?
Come on.
Now we also do meet another world hopper in this book. Khriss and her retinue has a man named Bayon, who is her bodyguard.
Where do we say Bayon?
Bayon shows up in The Way of Kings in the first interlude with Ishik in the Pure Lake.
Oh, he's one of those guys.
Yes. Okay. So you have Yeah. You have two guys. One of the guys is referred to as Blunt.
Oh, so that's Blunt. Okay.
Blunt is Bayon.
Because I remember there's the Elantris guy whose name starts with G that I can't remember right now.
Grump,
yes. And he's Galadin.
Galadon, yeah. So, and then I can't remember what Demo's
I thought the
is.
other one, I don't remember what his name was.
But anyway, so yeah. So Blunt is Bayon. So we apparently, he starts world hopping too, and he joins the 17th Shard. Because they're out hunting for Hoyd and seeing. So basically, there's a lot of stuff going on. Even though this is sort of one of the... Because it's a graphic novel, it feels very quick and very brief.
And kind of on its own little thing, more separated.
But there's so much Cosmere stuff in here.
That you can easily miss if you're not paying attention for it.
And there's actually more that we'll talk about later at the end of this episode having to do with the magic system and the shard that's on Taldain. Because
that's right,
holy cow, there's a lot there. But let's jump into the plot.
Yes.
So
Probably. Good idea.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
There's Kenton.
So
He's
we
a
got
sad
Kenton.
little boy.
And this is one thing I already noticed that was different is in the prose version, it starts off with his backstory. It starts off with him going to, with his father watching the trial and seeing whether he becomes a Sandmaster or not.
Which they do as a flashback in here, right?
Exactly. They start immediately with him going to run the Mastral's path, or the path of the Mastral.
Yeah, they only have so many pages. We got to get.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's a graphic novel type thing. Is you have to condense the story so much that you have a lot of flashbacks that you need them.
There's a lot more in medias res stuff as well because you jump in, it's like boom, action.
Yeah, because you want to hook the person right away.
Right. And so basically we find out that Kenton is the youngest son of the Lord Mastral, the head of all Sandmasters, Sandbenders,
and his name is
whatever
Paxton?
Praxton.
Praxton. Yeah, the dad's name rushes out of my head immediately.
Yeah, so the dad is a super powerful Sandmaster.
Sandbender.
But none of his sons have any ability, and Kenton is the youngest of these.
Do we know they're all boys? Or is it just children?
Well, it says sons.
Sons? Okay.
It says none of his sons.
Did we see any female?
Well, they mentioned towards the end of it when Kenton is going into the city or whatever and finds out there's very few survivors and stuff like that, which is, if you're listening to this, you've already read it, hopefully.
Right.
He mentions women. So I'm assuming there are some.
I'm just
I was for some reason I was under the assumption that it was a patriarchal order.
But I mean, because that feels weird to me. Because I mean, he mentions women.
Okay.
But you don't ever see any.
Yeah.
When they're doing that, so I'll see if I can find that spot.
But it specifically refers to none of his sons being able to. Now
he
may have only had sons, and so
it's possible, yeah.
But yeah, Kenton was the only one who even showed any remote ability, but Praxton didn't want him to join because he basically saw this as an embarrassment. Because it's a constant reminder.
Mm-hmm. So we do see a lady sand mastery, whatever, when they're doing other stuff. So there is one at least. So I'm assuming there are others.
Okay.
Cool. Good to know. But yeah, so Praxton basically sees him as an embarrassment because not only can he not master sand, but he's going to remain there as a reminder to everyone else that this guy couldn't father any children with the ability, which he's kind of sensitive about.
Well, and you know why? There's extra stigma behind his children too.
Because his wife came from Darkside.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing she's probably passed away or something. Or do they say in the prose?
I think she's dead at this point. Yeah,
she's dead
because you don't ever see her.
Pretty sure she's dead. I don't know if we know how.
I think she's dead before Kenton even goes to be tested. But yeah, so Kenton basically he's grown up with a chip on his shoulder.
Oh yeah,
because his dad is always saying, "Dude, don't do this. You can't do this." To the point where he gets kind of harsh.
Give up. just quit.
Oh yeah,
Because in this life, you can't win.
he's a super harsh dad. I can kind of see why he would take that route if he's had multiple sons who have not had it work out, and then his last hope didn't work either, but his son keeps sticking around and won't just go do something else.
And he also says, this is going to be a painful life if you do this. And Ken's just like, I'm going to do it anyway, Dad. So
their society is incredibly elitist.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Well, to the point where the other cultures, you see how they refer to the Sandmasters, and they just hate them. They absolutely despise them.
Yeah, their elitism goes past just their attitude. It goes to the fact that they take money, but they don't ever, for several generations or whatever, they haven't given anything back.
Exactly.
So that would be a
it's not like
serious
Dryal doesn't
cultural
have
problem.
a point.
But he...
So at one point, they did help, and they were part of the professions, and they worked alongside all the other professions, and then
they built things.
As the generations have gone on, they've just sort of become more and more elitist and reclusive and judgmental of everybody else. So
it's what
they
I
made
think
some
we would call a
bad
problem.
choices. Yeah.
So let's talk about the path of the Mastrals, or the Mastrals path. I can't remember which order it is.
I have a reference.
Let's talk about the path, because I feel like this is kind of a really cool trial.
Yeah, it's like Guts on steroids.
Well, and it also does a good job of demonstrating Kenton's creativity and his resourcefulness, because it is specifically made so that only a Sandmaster can run it. And Kenton still finds a way, even though he only is able to control a single ribbon of sand. Now, it says multiple times. It says multiple times that he can only control one ribbon of sand, but what he can do with that one ribbon of sand is mind-blowing.
Is crazy good.
Because the precision that he can work with it, and just how he can mold it.
Yeah, I mean, you see him in fights partway through in the book, and he's keeping up and doing better than people who can do more ribbons of sand than he can. And he says that it's because he worked with soldiers for so long.
Yeah, that's the thing, is he realizes that he's never going to be the strongest Sandmaster, and so he develops other abilities to supplement what he has. He learns, he trains with the sword.
Yeah. Which
Now,
they all find atrocious.
There's a little bit of Airbud rules lawyering going on here, where he's like, the rules don't say I can't take a sword. And, he gets to get away because it's like, well, the rules don't say that a golden retriever can't play basketball, so...
oh, those movies.
But, it's still the kind of thing... I mean, he's only got an hour to get through. Technically an hour's longer. They say 100 minutes, I think. But, he goes through and he finds each of these...
Little red
orbs that he's supposed to find.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites, and this was in the prose version, it wasn't as well explained in the graphic novel, but at one point he comes across this wall that has all these tiny little holes in it, and the orb could be in any of these little holes. And if he was a master who could use a lot of different ribbons, he could easily send them in quest and sort of pull out the orb. But because he can only do one, it would take forever. So what he does is he looks and he sees a spot where there's black sand.
I think they kind of, in the picture, it kind of gives that hint.
Okay.
That he spots that he's like, that's where the dark sand is. That's where the dark sand is, type thing. And so it's giving a hint towards that.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things I feel like prose explains it better.
Yeah, that said, I did find, I will give them the credit that it's an incredibly well thought out path as far as trying to demonstrate why does this test their abilities. Specifically by making the last trial one where it's like, well, can you slatrify? Yes or no? And
instead, Kenton decides to cut the knot.
He just like, nope, we're going this way.
Which kind of ticks off the other Mastrals.
Well, yeah, because he sort of ruined it forever.
Yeah, broke it. Now nobody can do it.
To be fair, everybody gets murdered anyway, so nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
It was just foresight on his part.
Yeah, but when your defense is no one who matters will be dead by the time this matters, it's a poor decision regardless.
Yeah.
He got 6 orbs, though.
He did.
I felt like that was a nice little touch. Because you see a lot of these things, and it's like, he did it perfectly. Oh, no, he didn't do it perfectly. He did it better than perfectly.
110%. It'll be 120, right? Yeah, 120.
Yeah. It's like getting all 3, or what is it, 102% in Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yep.
I don't remember. I was never amazing at that game. It was fun, but I was never very good at it.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a nice little touch because... because it's kind of a trope to have somebody face the gauntlet and, he wasn't supposed to survive, and he did.
It's very Kirk versus the Kobayashi Maru.
Yep. I like that comparison, actually. Okay, so then he gets back, and they have the whole award ceremony, and Dryle is stripped of his rank and demoted.
Well, before that, you meet his friend, too.
Okay. That's right. I forgot about his friend.
Yeah, Taldain?
That's the planet.
The planet. It's okay. Am I the only one?
Traben. It's Traben.
Am I the only one who has a harder time remembering the names of characters in the graphic novel versus an actual book?
No, because in the actual book, they're repeating the name over and over and over. In the graphic novel, you see it maybe once or twice if somebody calls them by name.
Which makes it tougher. So I did better this time because I read... this is my 3rd time reading it, I think. Because when I bought number 2, I read the first one again. And then read it. So this is my 3rd time reading it. So I have the names a little bit better. And they have some of the sketch work for the characters. Right. And so I was able to go, okay, that's that person's name again. Anyway.
And that's the other thing is, because of this art style... not all of the faces are so distinct because they all have that very weathered look.
So it's harder to tell. So you're almost relying on their clothes, which isn't very helpful with the Sand Masters because they wear pretty much the same outfit as each other. To the point where
you were talking about manga and anime, the lady judge reminds me of an old lady in a Miyazaki film.
Yes. It's not Baba Yaga, but I know who you mean.
I'm not talking about any in particular.
In Avatar, the Last Airbender.
Yeah,
I know her too.
I'm not talking about any in particular. It's just like that's sort of the art style,
and like the hair too. It almost looks like Lady Tremaine hair a little bit.
Yes, it does.
I know that hair familiar. I'm familiar with that hair. Just a little.
I actually noted that as I was reading it. I was like, "Hey, we should like this."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, there's that hair again." I hate bouffants or whatever these are called. So,
but yeah, okay, so. They see Traben. They chat about old times.
He's like, you did awesome, man. And he admits that he only got 3 when he did it.
Now, is Traben an undermastral? Is that right?
Oh, goodness. He's fairly high up there.
I feel like he's one step below mastral. I think they actually refer to that.
I'm just going to keep this open because I keep having to reference it. Flippity flip flip. Where are you?
But then, of course, there's the whole award ceremony. First, they... have Dryle up there, and remind me, why did they strip Dryle of his
because
rank?
he was trying to be a merc.
That's right.
He was starting to sell his services, whereas they're like, no, this is holy stuff. You don't do that. This is
right. Priestcraft.
You don't sell your services.
And he's like, it doesn't say anywhere in the rule book that we can't sell our services.
So Traben is a maestral.
He is a maestral. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Dryle basically gets stripped of the rank of Mastral and becomes is it Mastral or Maestral?
Oh, it's M-A-S, Mastral.
Okay, so Mastral.
But then they also pass around this big cup of water too.
Right, the ceremonial hookah drink.
Take a hit, pass it on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, against his father's wishes, Kenton keeps pushing and pushing to the point where, and his father offers him the rank of underfen, I believe, which is, or no, just fen, which is one step above the lowest, which is underfen. And
something to that effect, yeah.
And Kenton is just like, no, I want to be a Mastral.
And so then he offers him Dryals. He's like, fine, you can pick that up off the ground.
Yeah, like he's very, very dismissive and just condescending about it. And as he's being condescending, suddenly an arrow comes out of the blue and just sticks
gets him, yeah.
So.
Shot through the heart.
Wrong side of the body, but yes.
But yeah, I agree. The whole thing that they did with the Khristians, just, it felt bizarre. Because it felt very, very Celtic.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what the right word was, but yeah, Celtic. I like that, Doc. That's good.
One thing I did notice.
Sorry, it was awesome.
No, hey, that's what chat's in here for.
Memes.
So for the people who see it later, he said, "You give sand a bad name." So, with my terrible singing today, because my throat's being weird.
So based on the descriptions, I feel like the Khristians, they feel very similar to, what's it called? The guys in Elantris, the villains,
Hrathen's people.
Yeah, Hrathen's people.
Hrathen. You should know this, Jordan. Come on.
No, I'm trying to...
I can't remember what they're called. I keep wanting to say Nords. Svords. The Svordish.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Just because... Yeah, Fjordell. And it's just because it seems like the way their culture has gone, suddenly there's a fanatical priest at the head of the group, and they're sending them to purge the infidels. And it's just sort of like... I think that Brandon ran with this concept again with Elantris.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they both would have been fairly early works of his, so it makes sense.
Again, I think Elantris was 7. This was 8.
So they may have morphed a little bit more to.
And so I think probably what happened is that 7 was not inspired, but influenced by. The Elantris was influenced by what he did in White Sand, and then he decided to rewrite White Sand.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just some overlap.
Some of that.
There.
Yeah, I have themes and character types that keep working their way into the stories that I occasionally write, which will probably never see the light of day.
And that's just sort of how writing goes.
Yeah. You find stuff that just sticks with you and you just keep meshing and hashing it out. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
yes.
After the whole fight and Kenton falls into darkness,
even then, Kenton keeps...
Oh, he holds his own. I mean,
he holds a lot better, and he gets them all to fight together better, even though they still lose. But I mean, he gives them a better chance.
They were overwhelmed. I mean, there were just so many, and all of them were poisoned, or something.
And he also mentions that none of them know how to work together in a fight.
Yeah.
That I'm never going to say it right.
Khristians. Think of a girl named Kirsty. Kirsty.
Yes.
Okay.
The bad people who are killing them, whose name I cannot say. They're actually working together because they are warriors. All of them have the X on their head, which he later comments and says that's a warrior mark.
Right.
But the Sand Masters have not had to be in a fight in a long time, so they don't know how.
And it turns out that's a problem.
Yeah.
When people are trying to murder you.
Okay, I couldn't figure out, reading the graphic novel, how did Kenton end up under the sand?
I don't know. That's pretty fuzzy,
Didn't
too.
his father, last blast?
He does, he does a huge blast of stuff.
He does the sand.
And the sand is doing, these big waves. It's like a 2-page spread.
Okay.
And then the next thing you see is his dad getting, 50 arrows in him, and then Kenton passes out.
Okay. And then his hand pops out of the ground like a zombie, like daisies.
Like daisies!
Just popped out of the stand! Like daisies!
Like daisies! And he goes in and passes out, and then Khriss' retinue just sort of wanders in and says, hey...
And it's he's alive!
Look, there's a body!
A free plot device!
This one's still alive.
Okay, so one of the professors that's traveling with Khriss, his name is Cinder, and that just seems like it should be a lot more menacing of a character than this linguistics professor.
I love it, and he bickers too, which is fun.
Bickering's always fun.
And I think it's Cinder, who has like the little sparse bits of hair that always looks so weird in the art to me. It looks like he's bald in some pictures, but then I'm like, wait, there's something on his head. Oh, that's supposed to be hair, and it looks just strange to me.
Yeah.
So.
And
I love that they talk in front of him, and he understands them, and they don't realize that for the longest time. And he's do I tell them or not?
It makes sense because that's his mother's native tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And
but they wouldn't think he'd know it.
Mm-hmm. Although I didn't realize this the first time I read it, because I didn't the first time I read the graphic novel, I didn't pick up on the fact that his mother was a Darksider. And so I remember thinking, why does he look darker than everybody? And I thought it was just a matter of the art style. And then no, that was intentional. He's just part of that. Because he does look darker than the
It's more in the beginning that I feel like I noticed that he's got a darker skin tone versus when he's with Khriss and her retinue. He looks just normal pasty white to me. But I mean, he's also standing next to them for a lot of it. So
right.
But I mean, it feels like the coloring isn't consistent that way exactly to me.
Right.
So
and this is one of the things that frustrated me, and I don't know if this is a matter of character development or not, but in all of the images of her, Khriss seems she seems like a diva. Like the very first shot you see of her is her coming in looking fabulous. Like... She's got her hat on, she's got her shades, and she's the princess. You know, they call her Duchess, and
I think the pose and the clothing really don't help with that. That she comes off very prissy. It looks,
and it doesn't really mesh with the character
what we know of her.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if that's character. That's the thing is, I'm not sure if that's character development or just a poor portrayal.
Really,
so
or they were going for a dramatic entrance, or I don't know, or it's just...
right.
I personally, I think it's meant to be showing that she's a very different character than the one that we know from the Ars Arcanum,
because it looks very, very Paris Hilton when she first shows up, and so.
But yeah, it's a stark difference.
Yeah, it could also just show, like you were alluding to, Jordan, that she evolves past these books and becomes the Khriss that we know later. So,
right, because in the later books, she is an absolute scholar. She's a lot more understanding and humble,
and she's been to a lot more places by that point. Versus here, she's only been. This is her first continent hop, even
Right. Well, and. There was something, I'll look that up in a little bit, but yeah, she becomes a very, very different person. And we also find out that we don't know the exact details, but she is essentially exiled in the modern context from Taldain. She's not able to go back. She refers... let me see if I can find it.
In the Ars Arcanum one, like she says, like one of her last lines or something is effective. She's very aware. I'm very aware of how hard it is to come back.
Yeah.
Or travel between, into Taldain is.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm looking for.
It was like the very end of the...
Yeah, she says... Autonomy's policy of isolationism in recent times, in direct contrast to her interference with other planets, I might add, has prevented travel to and from Taldain for many, many years, a fact of which I am all too aware. And so... There's also just a lot of stuff. You can tell that she's gone through a lot.
I mean, by the beginning of this book, she's already lost her fiancé. I mean, and she's already gone through the mourning or whatever. Is it Gavin or Gavin? Gavin, I believe.
Yeah, Gavin, which is short for something. And I also find it interesting because we know her as Khriss. She's shown up in all the other books and has been referred to mostly as Khriss.
But she doesn't like being called Khriss in here.
When she introduces herself in Secret History, she introduces herself as Khriss. She doesn't like being called Khriss in here because it's what Gavin called her.
Oh, that's true. So she probably gets over that at some point.
But then Kenton apparently is able to get away with it because he keeps calling her Khriss. So I wonder if there's something there or what. But it's...
I don't know.
We'll
have to see. I mean, there's the third one that's still coming out, so...
Yeah.
The other thing it could be is just the fact that Brandon realized Chrysala sounds like a Pokemon, so we had to move away from that.
Well, and it's just it's a longer name. Like, people tend to shorten names if at all possible.
It's one of the cocoon stages of an insect Pokemon.
Yeah, that's
Chrysala.
definitely the second evolution.
Yeah.
Just like Metapod.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or a chrysalid. Wait,
Kakuna.
no, that's something else. No, but, okay, so I love how Kenton shows them how to find water. Mm-hmm. Where
it's like, water's everywhere, and they're like, what are you talking about? This is a desert.
This is a desert. And so he sprinkles a little bit of... He sprinkles a little bit of water and pours it on the ground, and suddenly this vine comes up. And it's like, it's a vine. He cuts it open, and it's like a series of tubes. Mm-hmm. Like the internet is underneath the desert.
Which makes sense. They have like radios and stuff.
Right. But it's just, it's like this flowing water. You see in a lot of like Westerns and stuff like that say, oh, you can take a cactus and you cut it open and there's water in there. But like there's literally flowing water inside of these
It almost looks
vines.
like a water fountain because they have like the plant and then there's like their pot or whatever, and it's just like arcing like that.
Well, but again, it totally makes sense given the world he's built and
it's how it's a defense mechanism and he talks about this when he's fighting the sandworm.
Oh goodness, what is it
where
called?
There are these creatures that
Sandling.
He's a sandworm. there are these chitinous
I heard that you
creatures.
killed the sandlings.
Yes.
Jordan.
What? People love prequel memes.
You are a living prequel meme, Jordan.
It's not untrue.
But anyway, so we find out that they have this chitin that is very, very sensitive to water, to the point where it'll literally dissolve in water. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that these vines have evolved to the point where if they're bitten into, water spews out and dissolves the mouth of whatever bit them. It's a pretty good defense mechanism.
It's one of the reasons we don't eat acid.
It makes me think that...
I like lemons.
Well, yeah, I guess... Well, anyway. That it
tend
feels
to
like
bite
a very...
into them.
So, we know that humans didn't originate on this planet, and I think that's just one other pointer, is that they're not sensitive to water. The way that...
Well, I don't think we know how humans arrived on this planet, because there's... Some of them are created. For example, with Scadrial. Because they were created. And I think...
And tweaked to fit the environment, yeah.
And I think Nalthis as well.
Yeah.
So, which is why they have breath. Mm-hmm. But we don't really know about the origin of these humans.
Yeah, but it just feels like they don't match the ecology and the biology of everything else there, because everything else has chitin.
Well, even if they are quote unquote native, you're right, because they weren't built off that. They're built with the
human standard,
whatever the Yolan human is.
I mean, there's and there's also the potential that they originated on dark side and then eventually migrated over to day side, and we don't have enough we really don't have enough information yet to kind of know.
That just occurred to me because we talked about that on Roshar and all those different things, and I was like, it's probably similar here. Because they have the Roshar creatures seem similar to a sandling in some aspects.
Yeah,
it's true. They are chitinous.
And even the horse things that they ride, what are they called?
Tonks.
They kind of tonks. Yeah, they have alien / chitin on their back and stuff.
Tauntauns?
Tauntauns that are more on their fours.
Tonks? But yeah. And so... Yeah, so then they start they head over and stop and get some supplies.
Mm-hmm. And he finds out all the politics that are going on.
Yeah.
Which is always fun.
Yep.
Everyone loves politics.
And Khriss gets mad when he's like speaking in the other language to the merchant, and she's like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?"
Which was confusing and frustrating because there was no indication that it was a different language.
Yeah, I think in other there's
some
a manga
things
that I love.
They use brackets. I've seen.
I've seen it in some mangas they do that, or they'll do like the little greater than, less than signs, type thing. And there's a manga that I love. It's from Far Away.
Okay.
And the main character ends up going to different worlds and has to learn the language there. And so they use brackets and stuff really effectively for her learning the language and keeping it clear as to which language is being spoken.
Right.
So that would have been a lot more helpful in here, in that you know what they're speaking. Or colors or something to help indicate, because you just are like, well, they didn't recognize that, or these people didn't, or they didn't, or
it's very much a tell don't show in this version, because it should be show don't tell, but in this one the only reason we know that they're speaking a different language is Khriss says, "Hey, why are you speaking that different language?" And
it's like, what are you saying? I didn't understand that. And it's like, yeah, it would have been nice to know beforehand.
It would have just been a lot clearer if there had been some sort of visual representation to indicate, hey, this is different.
Yeah, I mean, they do have random definitions where they're introducing things like
keto,
or a car, which is the high priest, or whatever like that, and stuff like that, where it's putting it in there, and so you have to define it. But
right.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to. I'm trying to think, how would you do that in these books? Given that you're going to have all this new language anyway. And I don't know. I'm not sure what the solution is if you're going to do a graphic novel, other than get rid of the terms.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't bug me to have them define a specific title or something like that. That makes sense. That's not a big deal. But I think mixed with not showing what language they're speaking in, it makes it more confusing where they're randomly putting in terminology and things like that.
Right.
I agree.
So
okay, so getting back to the story, apparently one of the what's it called? Kenton's sash comes out.
Yes.
When there's a thief, and he calls out, "Hey, stop thief!"
Well,
and suddenly they get attacked by another Christian. And
they get out of town and then they get attacked. So he's really nervous the whole way there.
Yeah, and it sounds like basically what happened is they saw the sash and attacked earlier than they were planning, so it wasn't a coordinated attack. And Kitten tries to master sand and isn't able to even get the one ribbon.
Yeah, it fizzles on him.
Okay, I didn't quite figure out why he wasn't able to do that. Did either of you pick up on?
I couldn't figure. I was like, it's not self-doubt, I don't think, because he doesn't doubt himself that much.
It just sort of came out of the blue. I'm not sure what exactly was going on.
Like, I was wondering, is he just too tired? Which shouldn't be the case, because he's had plenty of time to recover. It's been like a week or more since the attack, and he shouldn't be dehydrated at this point.
Right.
So I'm wondering if it's his body still getting used to meshing with his father's magic or something to that effect.
Which I also didn't understand.
Yeah, it felt very much to me like and suddenly he has this cool power.
Oh, look, now I can do 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just didn't, the flow wasn't there the way you would want, because you can't show the internal thoughts and feelings and everything else as much in a graphic novel.
It felt like it was attempting to go for sort of the way things pan out in the first Captain America movie, where it's this guy with no power whatsoever, and he learns to get by without it, and he develops his own sort of code of behavior around that, and then he's given the power. But it just didn't quite mesh the same way. It felt a lot more jarring. And it was just sort of suddenly, hey, check me out now. I'm skilled and powerful.
That said, I did really like Dryle being like, we'll have this discussion up here.
For those who can.
He's like, okay. He pops
He's
up.
like, fine, let's bring it. And they're like, he can't, what? He can't do that. And it's like,
that's not allowed.
I'm doing it. And he beats up Dryle too.
Yeah.
Which feels very deserved.
He just takes Dryle, like, it's not just beating him up. He, like, curb stomps him.
And stay down.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay, so I didn't quite understand what Ace or however you pronounce her name, her purpose was. The Tract.
Oh, she plays a bigger part in the next one.
Yeah, I was gonna say it felt like she was
because here they're more. She's more set up in this one because you don't see her for very long. She comes in like 2/3 or 3/4 of the way in, and you're just getting her set up. And so at the end of this one, she's just going to be his bodyguard.
Okay.
And it feels like she's showing a different side of the city a little bit, as well as giving a hint towards a different culture and sub whatever stuff that's going on. But she doesn't do as much in the first one. But she's more in the second.
She also looks like she's got sort of a Celtic heritage.
Yeah, like the hair, the thing on her head that definitely feels that way too to me.
Yeah.
And the curly, almost like wavy hair a little bit. I don't know. But I can see where you get that.
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure out. So,
well, I mean, we do know that Sanderson tries to keep nobody quite ethnicities that match what we have here.
Yeah.
True.
So it makes sense that he'd be kind of meshing stuff in there.
No,
trying to
what I was saying
interpret
is I couldn't quite pick up on what her importance was. I read, like I said, I read the prose version years ago, like a long time ago. And I actually haven't read the second of the graphic novels.
Oh, you haven't read it yet.
So for the second one, I'm working on long, old memories.
Yeah, so. I mean, I thought this one went further than it did when I reread it today.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, we stop here. Okay. And so I was remembering some of the stuff that happens in the second one when I was starting this one again. So there's more that happens with her. I don't remember exactly what, but I know that she plays more because she's actually interacting with everybody. So that changes things up a little bit.
Now, one thing that's very interesting is, again, this is chronologically the very first thing, not counting Dragonsteel. And they've already got gunpowder.
I know, but only on the dark side, and it's very limited in what they have.
Right, but you stop and you think about all of the other planets in the Cosmere, and you wonder, what is Taldain like at the time of the Stormlight Archive? Like,
makes you wonder if they're out doing stuff in space.
I actually have if I had to guess, I am willing to bet they actually do not progress very far. I have a feeling that progress is a very slow thing on that planet. And my logic for that is that you have to have a lot of back and forth in order to get progress. And they
except that on Darkside there is a lot of that there's multiple cultures on Darkside.
Yeah, but
so
the leadership also is suppressing stuff actively too.
Okay.
Yeah. And
they mentioned with the guns that they're very tight on who can have guns and who can have access to them or knowledge of them.
I do think it's interesting that Khriss says, they're relatively new, only in the last 100 years or so. It's just like, I don't think that's new.
But it hints that they're a society that is very long-term conscious.
True. Very true.
So they would be much more hesitant about just jumping onto the next thing.
Which makes sense why Khriss would be a Cosmere scholar, because that's a long-term gig.
Yeah, she's playing the long game there.
Okay, so the when Kitten first gets there, he decides he needs to meet with the What are they called? The what?
Taishin, I think.
Taishin?
The Taishin.
Yeah.
Taishin.
And he gets there and thinks he's meeting with them about, showing that he should be the Lord Mastral. Mm-hmm. And instead, suddenly he finds himself defending their existence at all.
Yeah, because he gets there and he's ready to tell off Dryal, is what he starts out. And then he finds out that they're like, no, we're voting you out as a thing. You're just not going to be part of it. We'll be 7 instead of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, wait a minute, I liked being a thing.
He's like, I was going to be the thing and be important and responsible. And you're just like, nope.
But but this is, again, one of those moments where Kenton being a rules lawyer kind of pays off.
Because he's like, wait. You need to give me 2 weeks notice on this. You cannot take away my thing without 2 weeks notice.
And they're like, okay, but it has to be unanimous. Good
luck. Have to get unanimous. And of course, everybody makes that hard.
Don't worry. By the end of this, I'll get one more extra vote than we actually had at the...
I need to get 7 votes. I'll give you 8.
I'm an overachiever.
Because that's sort of what Kenton do.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, Khriss and her party are looking for more information on Gevin.
Yeah, and they're in the dark side. I want to say quarter, but that's not the right word. It's kind of the sector. I don't know. It's
dark side town.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's kind of interesting. Her guards have very different views on it. One of them is like, "We just left dark side. I don't want to be. I don't want to be here. I want to go experience the other things." And the other one's like, "No, this is super exciting." I think that's Cinder, who's all excited because he's seeing the meshing of cultures and how things are being influenced by being on Dayside and all those other things.
Well, and they argue over whether it's a linguistic or a cultural thing.
blending.
And it's like, no, I get to define it. You can't do that for me.
I'm just like, oh no, nerd arguments. I've been in so many like this.
I was like, oh, Bill would love that. Yeah.
I did and I didn't. It was one of those, oh no, I've lived this too many times. But yeah, and of course they find out that they need to find one of the leaders of the professions. And so they go to all these different ones and they keep getting turned away.
It's like one,
or ignored.
I loved how it worked out in the graphic novel because it was like one panel,
yes.
one panel. That was very good.
That was something that they did very well because it
worked well.
It was a montage, essentially.
Because it would have been harder in prose. I don't know how exactly you would have done that without it being more stretched out versus you get one little panel there. And I mean, she does the same thing where she's like clicking her pen or whatever, and they're like, and you got to wait 2 weeks, and they're out of town. And
yep. No, it was a very well.
I liked that. That was good.
It's one of those things like, okay, this is what this genre allows that wouldn't have been as good in prose.
Yeah, condensing it just is so much easier in that format.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they find out the last one that they got to go to is the Sandmasters. And they show up and they see Kenton sandbending.
And she's like, you! And he's like, yeah, we got to go.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have time for this. And then he sort of launches off and
they're like, wait, you what? He just did thing? What?
And we get a
that's where it
to
ends.
Be continued. Yeah.
Yeah. But before that even, she finds out about Gevin. I keep forgetting his name. Devin.
Gevin.
Wait. Gevin. Ugh, these names. So yeah, she finds out that Gevin was in this location last, and that like a political traitor guy, I can't remember. I
think that's a technical term.
Yeah, totally technical. He's there, kind of holding court in Darkside Town, and one of her Ban tries to kill him when he sees him.
That's right. This man is a traitor.
And they're like, no. She's like, I know. We got to go. It's fine. We're going to keep moving.
Yep.
That was an interesting thing, though, when they find, like, you see that they have guns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait a minute. They said they're not supposed to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, is that what that scene was?
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about this lady judge.
Yeah.
Because
what's her name again?
she is interesting. I don't remember anything. They just keep referring to her as the Lady Judge. I think they do give a name to her, but
I will find
I don't
the
remember
name.
what it was. But Lady Tremaine.
I think that was also her name.
Yes.
Obviously.
That
But-
too is the technical term.
Her conversation with Kenton afterwards is very, very interesting because in the courtroom she is downright hostile to him.
Oh, yeah.
And then afterwards she starts having this congenial little chat. And you can't really tell what
It's like she flip-flops on her
side she's on.
personality almost. Yeah.
she has a very puppet master feel to her. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those you just think, what are you up to, woman?
She's up to something.
No good.
Or lots of good. It's hard to tell with
He
the
just-
Brandon character.
He just calls her Lady Judge and when he first
Yeah.
sees her. But I'll keep looking.
Yeah, because they keep referring to her, which apparently, does that mean that there's only one Lady Judge? Is that an actual office of you have 7 judges and then you have the Lady Judge?
I don't know.
Or
It's not super clear.
Really wasn't clear.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7. So it looks like she's one of the 7
right?
when she's voting down. So I think she
Sorry.
must be part of one
Sorry.
court or one
Sorry,
section.
When I said 7 judges, I was talking about including the Sandmasters.
Oh, Lady Helis. That's her name.
Helis.
There's 2 E's. Helis.
Like it's just one of those. She's playing multiple games, and I'm interested to see where she comes from. To the point
almost-
where
yeah.
her face features on the cover of Volume 3 when it comes out.
Yeah, Volume 3 is going to be interesting. I won't spoil things because you haven't read it yet, but from what I remember, Volume 3 is going to be interesting because Volume 2 just like ramps up the tension and more conflicts, and you're like, can we have something resolved? And it just
Right.
it isn't.
Nah.
So that's what the other book's for.
Yep. Oh boy. Okay. So, do y'all have anything else about the actual plot of the story you want to talk about before we move on to the magic system and autonomy?
I did like the little orphan or whoever they have leading them around, which is fun.
Right. She's leading Chris's party, right?
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I'll give you if you give me 10 lock or whatever of the money is." She's like, "I'll show you to the guy," and then she shows him to the guy, and then she's not happy about having to be their guide at
For the
all.
low price of 10 lock, I'll introduce you to it.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
and there's a character introduced who plays a much bigger part in the second book, along
Who's
with
that?
the lady guard that you were concerned about. The guy with the creepy bandages. What is his name?
Nuttall?
Right.
Yeah, he's the
Nitto.
guy. Nilto.
Nilto.
He is the guy that the guard is hunting, actually, and that
Right,
you
that's
see a
right,
lot more
yeah.
of that. You see more of that in the second book, because I guess I was thinking that happens in the first book, but it doesn't. You meet him and you know she's hunting him.
I thought the
So.
guy that she was hunting was named like Sharazim or
He has 2 names.
Oh, that's the same guy. Okay.
It's the same guy, I'm pretty sure.
It's just it's a lot harder to keep track of in this. in
Yeah, the names
graphic
are
novel.
tough. Like that's why I could read it way faster than I do, but I take the time, like especially
Yeah.
now that I'm trying to be on the podcast and actually know what I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
that I read a page and then I read it again.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll flip back and go, "Oh wait, that's so and so," or so I'm forcing myself to do it a lot slower because I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
absorb it versus just enjoy it real fast.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so they play a much bigger part in the second one.
I figured
So.
they probably would. So
Yeah, there's a lot more that goes on there.
Mm-hmm.
What is her name? I can't remember.
Ace.
Is senior track at AIS. AIS,
Yeah.
I think is her name.
Yeah. AIS.
So,
Ace.
yeah.
IS.
It's funny
However
because
you
like
pronounce it.
there's a lot of words that I want to do with the Japanese pronunciation, and so I'm like I don't know what pronunciation to do for things because I'm like, do I jump to that pronunciation or do I do something that's more English or whatever? And so it's hard to say these names.
Or we
Just
could do
follow
a,
your heart. That's what I always do.
Or we could do a Lantrian pronunciation and call her AIS.
Oh no. AIS. No, I'm actually having
I'm mad
to work
that
on
you're
my
correct.
No, and it doesn't help that I'm doing Queen Eleanor, and so I'm trying to like practice my Scottish, and I'm like, oh goodness, this is getting all sorts of weird, and I'm not very good at it yet, and I have to do it Wednesday.
It's all mixing up together.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's step back and look at things from a much broader cosmic perspective. First off, I want to talk a little bit about Taldain itself, because I think it's just a really interesting, Roshar is one of the most interesting settings that Brandon's done because it's just so bursting with life.
It's massive.
This one is interesting on a cosmic level because it's tidally locked between two stars. And it's just the way that Brandon sort of explores how that would affect culture and climate and life, like different forms of life. One of the forms of life on the planet, though, is there's these tiny little microbes that are on sand.
Yeah, and you don't see them. You don't see them referenced in the book. You have to look at Ars Arcanum. Which,
the Ars Arcanum.
Thank you for recommending, because I'd forgotten about that.
You mean an Arcanum Abridged or Unbounded?
Yes. The Arcanum one. There's too many.
The Ars Arcanum is at the end of the books.
Oh, that's right.
Arcanum
I keep thinking
Unbounded
that is all of them put together. That makes more sense. I always forget that's Ars Arcanum at the end of them.
Yeah. Unbounded, it's like this is where you break the bonds and everything comes out.
It's all there.
So that's Arcanum Unbounded.
So yes,
which is weird because it's actually a bound book, so...
We're going for theoretical.
Yeah.
Or
but it's not... It's unbounded, not unbound. So it's boundaries removed.
Gotcha.
But bindings stay.
But anyway, so apparently, according to Arcanum Unbounded, in the essay that Khriss writes, if you put water on these microbes, it sort of releases the investiture that's stored in them.
Which comes down from the sun, right?
Yes. Yeah. It comes directly from the Taldain sun.
They have investiture rays, not UV rays.
I was going to ask, is that the microbes process it into investiture, or the sun?
No, it is directly from.
So it comes down from the sun.
Okay.
They use it there.
So Brandon has said if you wanted to use the sand on another planet, you would have to be able to get the rays from that sun to the sand.
It's even that specific sun.
So like when you notice in... is it Oathbringer or is it Words of Radiance where we see Mraize's collection?
Yeah, we see Mraize's
Words of Radiance.
Okay, it's in Words of Radiance. He has a vial of sand. And
I've forgotten that.
And I believe it's, it's that pure white sand. So technically, somebody with the ability to master sand could use that, but...
It would be a teeny amount of sand. And
it would need to be recharged.
Which is hard because autonomy won't let you in.
Now, there may be some sort of pack where they can use Stormlight, but Brandon has said to use it, you would need to get the light from
that sun.
So it's very specific about, it's not just sunlight. Bavadin is referred to as the Sand Lord. And there's a tie between the Sand Lord and the sun. And a lot of cultures worship the sun and revere the sun as a deity. And in this case, they're right. It
makes sense.
Kind of is.
Yeah, and even the not religious people on the planet revere the sun still, which makes sense.
Yeah, even Praxton, who considers himself atheist, still refers to the Sand Lord.
Yeah.
Now, I do think it's very interesting because autonomy, according to Brandon, and we've seen it pop up in other things, autonomy actually creates multiple avatars of herself. And apparently they don't all have to be the same gender. Most of them are female, but she does have avatars of multiple, of both genders. And it's interesting. Apparently, there are even some places on worlds where there is a pantheon that's worshipped, and every single member of that pantheon is autonomy.
Seems a little egotistical to have.
Now
that it's like, oh, here's me and me and me and me and me.
And the concept of autonomy, you think self. Mm-hmm. It makes you think one. And instead, it's just like, no, everything.
Well, I've also like seen people talk about like, especially like working moms or people who have very different jobs. If they work two jobs, is that you have your mom self and then you have your go to work self, and so
That's
like
true.
you feel very different in those. And like I still have problems sometimes where I'm not out with my kids and I'm like, oh, I don't have to talk about the kids stuff. I can be just me, not mom at that time.
Yeah.
And so it's self can be very split up too. So I can see why. And it feels fitting with Bobbin being a woman to me. Just, I don't know.
The other thing that's interesting is autonomy it's two different things. It's not just, being yourself. It's also being able to take care of yourself. The more
self-sufficiency.
The more that you're just alone, the harder it is to be self-sufficient.
True.
Because you can't specialize the way you would normally. And so being able to make multiple aspects of yourself that can specialize in various tasks in some ways makes you more autonomous in that you're self-sufficient, but it is also a contradiction in that are you really still yourself if you keep breaking yourself off to specialize into other things?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Apparently, autonomy can create an avatar on a planet even without physically visiting it. So it's not just a matter of going somewhere, planting a seed, and taking off. She can pop up where she wants. And that's probably has something to do with being housed in the spiritual realm. But it sounds like that's something that only she really has the ability to do.
Yeah, and wasn't it kind of the thought that she's on Pachi, right? Six of the Dusk.
Pachi is one of her avatars, yes.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who speculate that Trell might be one of them as well. That hasn't been confirmed.
That feels less ominous, but I know it shouldn't be.
One thing that's interesting is you think, what do you call what are the Sandmasters, the highest rank called? Mastrel. And I haven't read it yet, but apparently there is a character in the second one who briefly shows up, and his name is Trell.
I have forgotten about this. I will have to look again.
So there's evidence of it, but it hasn't been confirmed.
It's
so
not confirmed, yeah. So we have to wait for the third or fourth.
It's basically everything's been Rathoed. So
I still really don't want Trell to be a piece of autonomy. I want Trell to be the shard
Something
of logic.
Logic.
But
I think Brandon has said that Trell is not a full shard.
I haven't seen that, and I've been looking somewhat recently.
Okay, I'd need to take a look again, but I feel like I saw that. I take that with a grain of salt. I admit I could be wrong about that.
Yeah,
We're
that
only
one's
guessing here.
I want logic just because what do they call it? Set, sequence, array.
Right.
They're doing some very morally shady mad scientist experiments with hemalurgy. So I want it.
And then of course
statistics.
And then of course Bobbin also shows up in one other place. She writes one of the letters from Oathbringer. Mm-hmm. And she is kind of snippy with Hoy.
Yeah, she's not very friendly that way.
But Hoyt has already confirmed that they're not friends.
They don't mesh well.
Hoyt has it's been stated that Hoyt has a grudge against both Bovidin and Race. I think Frost calls him out on that in his letter.
Yeah.
But we don't know though whether Bovidin is simply neutral towards Race or whether they're actually allies. I'm guessing it's probably
Race is
more
odium, right?
Yes, Race is odium.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was remembering that right.
I'm leaning more myself towards just being neutral because autonomy is autonomous.
Yeah,
doesn't want
it kind
to
of
work
feels
with
like she's
somebody
like,
else.
no, this is my thing. I do my thing. You guys need to all just stay in your own little corners and do your thing and just stay out of people's business.
One thing that's interesting is that autonomy.
Get out of my sandbox.
Good job. I like that one.
Title drop.
Oh.
But anyway, she wants to remain autonomy. She doesn't want to be corrupted by any other shards. Mm-hmm. She's also, which kind of brings a little bit more context to when she calls out Hoyd, saying, "Hey, or she's kind of upset with both Aona and Sky from Cell in Elantris, and with Laris and Ati, because she's like, we said we were going to stay away from each other.
And what do? You go and settle on planets
together. The first thing you do is you go out and you make trillions of babies together.
I thought that one might have been Endowment. I thought Bovidin's was mostly just the sniping at Hoyd.
I'm pretty sure.
I gotta.
I don't remember.
Look it up.
I'm looking it up.
Okay, good, cool. But yeah, so I know some people have speculated that Bovidin actually might end up being the big bad of the Cosmere. But at this point, way too early to make any actual calls.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anything else y'all want to talk about? Anything that we've missed that you'll just think, ooh, what about that thing?
Now I want to make one of the Sandmaster costumes, even though I wouldn't ever actually wear it. But I'm like, I think I could figure out how to do that. And part of me is like, and it feels sort of Assassin's Creed-like.
I was going to say,
which is terrible. I totally could do it, but I'm pretty sure I'd go to FanX or Comic-Con and no one would know who I was.
Everybody'd say, ooh, you're Altair.
Sorry, I need to drop bombs from reading the letter and clicking on notations.
Okay.
So the first letter in Oathbringer was written by Endowment, and that was the one where she was saying,
who calls him out?
Yeah,
okay.
It's a pity about Aona and Sky, and says good riddance about Uli Da.
Which Uli Da, if we remember, is
ambition
from who died over Threnody.
Yeah, but the second letter, which is the one written by Autonomy, this is what it said. Second Oathbringer letter. The second letter is written by an avatar of Autonomy, specifically Patchy. And I went and looked up the reference. And this
it's a Word of Brandon?
Word of Brandon from last month, so very recently.
Okay.
Oh, wow, okay.
2 weeks ago, a person in Elegy. The second letter in this one, Oathbringer, was it written by Patchy? Brandon, yes.
Okay, that gave Brandon a lot of wiggle room.
The second letter, was it written by Patchy?
Brandon could easily just say yes because Patchy is Autonomy and Autonomy wrote the letter. Brandon likes to wiggle like that, so I can't. Especially when he just says.
Patchy probably also has time on their hands too. I mean, they're just an island.
Especially when he just says yes and doesn't expound on it. Often that's him trying to slither around a question.
That doesn't. But it feels like they're specifically saying Patchy, like they're asking about a specific aspect of Autonomy.
Yeah, but Brandon still would, like, that's the kind of thing that Brandon would take the opportunity to slither. So,
I guess I wouldn't see that as slithering. I'd see that as just, like, that's just lying to me.
No, I wouldn't see that as lying. And, again, that's the kind of logic loophole Brandon has used in the past.
I haven't seen that one specifically yet.
And when he's terse, it's because he doesn't want to expound.
Because you're going to say too much.
Uh-huh. It's like, he's like, because he doesn't want to flat out lie. And he's like, Patchy is Autonomy. Autonomy wrote the letter. Yes. It may still be Patchy, but I'm not ready to dive in and say, okay, that's how it worked.
But if that's the case, it does confirm the Patchy is definitely part of Autonomy.
Brandon has straight up confirmed that.
Oh, okay. I hadn't seen that one yet.
Yeah, Brandon has said that Patchy is an avatar of Autonomy. And so, and that's why I feel like it wouldn't necessarily be straight up lying. Just because he's already explained that this is a possibility. Anyway, anything else? Jordan?
Sorry, I'm just making sure there's no other...
come out of the rabbit hole. We got to finish this episode.
But the rabbit hole, there's things there.
You can go back in a minute.
Yeah, you can.
Sorry,
Khriss will still be there.
Just since we were talking about autonomy, it's just interesting that when autonomy is talking to Hoyd in that letter, it starts out Cephandrius, so using the old name, but it's just like, you know better than to approach us by relying upon presumption of past relationships. But then also says, had you spoken to the correct one of us, it might have found favor.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that they talk about how Hoyd can't stand Bovidin or whatever, but it seems some piece of Bovidin, I don't know which one,
gets along better.
Yeah, can be okay with Hoyd.
Which makes you wonder how much those pieces communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they just have to get back together to pass along information, or if the information's passed along, or what.
Dude.
What?
I wonder if Bovidin's avatars work similarly to Stephen Leeds' aspects, where she needs another avatar for a particular purpose or a particular skill or piece of... Oh, gosh.
That's trippy.
I wonder
and
if...
fits so well with what we're going to do in a minute.
No. I wonder if autonomy is the one. Remember how they refer to the one when we were talking about Roshar and that religion and how everyone is part of the one and it's...
But don't they specifically say ad nauseam in that religion?
No, they don't. They just say the one.
The one. Oh, man.
I wonder if that's...
You're making me all trippy now.
Because Brandon has said... Because that was the Iriali religion.
Yeah,
and
the one that the cobbler...
The one Jim was a part of?
Right. But and also Evie.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Sorry, we're going into Oathbringer a little bit here.
No, but that's not as
topical.
Right.
Anyway,
right. Yeah. But Brandon has mentioned something, and he hasn't been entirely clear about it, but something about the origins of the Riran and the Iriali people, and how it's kind of different from the others. What if they're from one of the other worlds that autonomy has?
If I do remember correctly, they do have darker skin and blonde hair, don't they?
I don't know.
At least Evie does.
No, Evie's pale, I thought.
No, Evie's dark-skinned.
Was she? I don't remember that, but I don't always pick up those details. We'll have to check when we do Oathbringer.
Yeah, but they do have golden hair. The Iriali are referred to as literally having golden hair. Evie's
I thought
has yellow hair.
I thought they also had like gold skin too, or more gold skin or something.
I thought that was the.
But anyway, the key is they're different from most of humans on Roshar, and they talk about the one and how everyone is part of the. That could be autonomy.
Yeah, I've always assumed it was ad nauseam, just because
I could see that
fits so well with the splintering of.
It might be autonomy, but then they have ad nauseam stuff mixing.
Well,
with it.
At a certain point,
That's
it's all
possible.
fractals. Like
Right.
Every shard is getting splintered or splintering itself in some way, or giving up its investiture in some way.
But it's just autonomy. It kind of is the whole concept of several things in one. I don't know. Again, not enough to make a full call, but it's suddenly that I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
That's trippy.
Anyway, and I'm sure if we're wrong, somebody will write in and let us know that we're idiots. So
Just
that's
be gentle.
CosmereStudies@gmail.com. Let us know. Anyway, now, thanks to our patrons who are amazing, we are able to give our monthly giveaways. And tonight, speaking of the different aspects of Stephen Leeds, we are giving away a copy of Legion, The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds. Of course, we want to give special thanks to, not tonight, but in 2 weeks we'll be giving away the copy. Sorry, pulling back, disclaimer, not tonight. 2 weeks from now. Good. Anyway, but we do want to give special thanks to Brandon Sanderson's online store at store.brandonsanderson.com for sending us so many awesome goodies to share. Check out, if you want Brandon Sanderson swag, that's the best place to get it. Go check it out. Buy something from him because there's some really, really cool stuff over there.
And they're nice people.
Yeah, there is. Like, it's like I don't know, I got some of the posters thanks to my sister. And
yeah.
They have posters of things. I'm just like, I would not have thought of that as a poster.
I'm actually wearing my Bridge 4 shirt right now.
I saw a Bridge 4 sticker on a car next to me at Home Depot. And I was like, I saw the guy getting his card. I was like, I like your Cosmere sticker. He's like, oh, thanks.
There's a guy, or at least there was a guy at my old job. He had it was one of these, there's a ton of people. You don't know everyone. But his license plate said Bridge 4.
Love it.
And I'm just like, I need to find, and I could never figure out who it was that had it.
Yeah, so we will actually post on our social media accounts in the next couple of days on how you can enter that giveaway. Now, I did mention there's a lot of really cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, we got a lot of cool stuff in this bag. What do you think, Jordan?
I do indeed agree that there's cool stuff in the bag, but that book is not the coolest.
Are you sure? I mean, that looks pretty cool.
It is shiny, and I am partial to shiny things as a human being. But no, there is in fact something else that I think is the coolest.
Well, cool. As always, we do want to thank our patrons. Y'all are the ones who make it possible for us to keep making the show. It'll continue to be free for everybody. But if you do want to support us, maybe head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies and pledge us $1 or $2 per episode. By becoming a patron, not only will you support us, but you get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can chat with some awesome and crazy Cosmere lovers just like yourself. We've got some great conversations going on. The discussion about both the Cosmere and the show continue. We also talk about completely off-topic stuff over there, and you will get bonus content like the 6-7, which is a collection of 7 pieces of content that each of the hosts, or not each of the hosts, but all of the hosts together find every couple of weeks. And you'll even get early access to any bonus content that we produce.
And if I may say, if you've enjoyed this episode, and in particular the prequel memes, you really want to get in on this Discord.
And there's random pictures of like my dog or my costumes or any of that other stuff too. Just random things. It's all good.
Oh, they're going to love the prequel memes reference, Jordan. What have you done? Don't encourage them.
What I've done is just wind up the toy. And then I put it down. And now I'm excited to see what direction it heads off.
They're going to be impossible to live with after this. Beyond that, our patrons are automatically entered into our giveaways. They get the first entry automatically. All entries aren't exclusive to patrons, and all of the giveaways are free to enter. The patrons just get one free entry automatically. And of course, you will help us to continue to make the show and improve it and do it more often, hopefully. As we get more patrons, we want to record episodes more than every other week, and we'd like to continue investing in better tools to make the show better. We've already improved our mic quality, but we can work on lighting and a bunch of other different things.
Or webcams or whatever else, yeah.
Exactly. So to all of our current and past patrons, thank you so much. Y'all are amazing. We are still saving up lore questions and aluminum foil hat theories from our listeners, and we would love to hear from a lot of you. Not just one or two. We want to hear from a lot, and would love to read your questions and talk about them on the show.
We're almost to the point where we're running out of Brandon Cosmere stuff.
Yeah, so
we've got these books.
If you want the show to keep going, you gotta give us some material to play with. We've got a bunch of ideas already, but
more is better.
We're only 3 people, so
there's already a prequel mem in Discord.
Of course there is.
Sorry.
So if there's a topic that you want us to talk about, send it in at cosmerestudies@gmail.com. We'd love to talk about it. Now, of course, we each have our own personal projects that we're working on. So, Amy, why don't you tell us about some of them?
I don't have anything selling right now, actually. But I'm on Facebook at Coincidence Cosplay and Props, on Twitter at Coincidence Cosp, because my name is too long, and Instagram at Coincidence_cosplay. I'm not really selling anything, but if you want to buy custom dice, let me know, and I will make it happen. But I'm trying to finish up Queen Eleanor mostly right now, and then I'm going to do...
By custom dice, are you talking about
the plush ones.
Pillows? Okay,
yeah.
Because custom dice, you might think just a little rolling dice.
No, I don't make little resin dice or anything like that. I make pillow ones. I have patterns for D10s as well as D20s now. So, do you have yours around, Bill? Somewhere? Yes, see?
That's
it's
his damage
pretty.
dice. He throws it at people.
Aw, I'm so glad it's happy. But anyway, so I can do in whatever colors you want, any of that. So, but yeah, so I mean that's something that I can make, and I'm thinking about trying to do 3D prints or something too, but I don't know. I've got to figure out what I can make and have it be cost effective. So, but yeah, Queen Eleanor is what I'm doing.
Jordan, what have you done?
Anyway, Queen Eleanor is what I'm finishing up, and then I will work on other things. So,
awesome,
yes.
Jordan. How about you?
For those of you listening live, tomorrow morning the Nintendo Direct at E3 is going to happen, and I'm going to be live streaming that and chatting about it with my my buddies there. So if you want to be my buddy and you're listening to this live, show up. If you're not listening to this live, that was yesterday, and unless you invent time travel, you can't join us in the past for that. But if you do invent time travel, use it on something better than just watching E3 with me.
And let us know.
In fact, if you are, let's steal the Big Bang Theory bit, you have to let us know in 5 seconds.
Well, that was disappointing.
Yeah, dang it, yeah. All right, to all the non-time travelers, just go to twitch.tv/splicestream, and I'll be doing more stuff there. We're wrapping up some Amiibo tournaments, and as soon as Super Mario Maker 2 comes out, we're going to be putzing around and losing lives on community-generated levels.
I really hope the Doctor is one of our listeners. That'd be cool. Anyway, as for myself, I've got a bunch of board game reviews.
Sorry.
Not that Doctor. Wow.
Doctor.
I walked right into that one, didn't I?
Yeah. Talk about low budget. This one only gives us prequel memes.
So when I'm not doing the show, I've got a bunch of board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table at www.innkeeperstable.com. I post about games on social media. I've actually bought way too many. I'm kind of embarrassed about it, but not really because they're amazing and fun. So, but if you want to check out that stuff, go to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the profiles are at Innkeeper's Table. For those of you who can't become patrons just yet, though, please consider heading over to iTunes, giving us a 5-star review. It helps us out. It brings more listeners to the show, and it makes us feel good. We like it when you like us. So yeah.
I want you to want me.
Yeah. Time for an 80s power ballad. Awesome.
Was that not a timely reference?
It was a very timely reference.
It was good. It was good. You guys make me silly. It's funny.
I love you guys.
I'm worried there's going to be just a whole swath of our younger viewers are just like, that's weird. That sounds like he's trying to hit on me. I know he's not, but
it's like I think I saw something that the movie 10 Things I Hate About You is now 20 years old, and it made me just like want to sit in a rocking chair in the corner and whack people with my cane as they walk by.
You have to get a cane first.
Yep. Now, in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/innkeeperstable every 2 weeks, Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, our listeners can find our videos on YouTube or the audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by doing a search for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we're continuing our discussion of White Sand, moving into Volume 2. We'd love to have you chime in on the discussion and chat, so join us for the live stream here on Twitch on June 24th, 2019. In the meantime, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.